Okay guys, here we are in week 5, and that means that it's time to start thinking about what we're going to be doing with the rest of our quarter. That's right, we're getting ready to start our final project. But first, let's take a little time to think about it and prepare. For your final project, you'll be creating a 3D model. This 3D model should be of an object that we would need on Mars, something that would be useful to us there. To figure out what this model will be, you should do a little bit of research. And to prepare to create this model, we're going to be creating some sketches. Now you can do as much research of your own as you want, but I have provided one link here that I want you to go check out, called What We Need on Mars. So this article touches on 5 different things that we would need for people to go to Mars, including items that we would need to survive in space, how we would land, how we would explore, how we would sustain our life there with a supply of fuel, water, oxygen, and food, and how we would leave the surface of Mars. So even just as we scroll through this article, I'm already seeing lots of ideas of things that I could create that would enhance our scene on Mars with some new 3D models. It could be a launch pad for leaving the surface, or the rocket that you'll be taking off in. You could model canisters and containers that would store important things that we need to keep on Mars. One of the most popular choices is creating a new Mars rover. There's a lot of different designs and possible models, so you can start from the ideas that already exist and put your own spin on it. Beyond that, you could model a spacesuit, a landing craft, and the list goes on. But really, it's up to you. The only constraint is that you should have done some research and be able to explain why the thing you're modeling is important to our trip to Mars or life on Mars. Oh, and let's not forget, a habitat. Those of us living on Mars will need a place to stay. There's a lot of cool concepts for habitats out there as well. And again, feel free to take some of these ideas, mix them together, take the stuff that you like, and make something that's a little bit your own. So while you should be researching and looking for reference, you should also feel free to have some fun and create something that's a little bit unique. After you think you have a pretty good idea for what you want to do, whether it's a rover or a landing module or a habitat, I suggest just go to Google Images and see what you can find. So I've decided I'm going to try my hand at a habitat, so I simply Googled Mars habitat concepts, and there's tons of ideas to reference here. So I've already pulled a bunch of these out, and now I'm going to make a few sketches. So I haven't decided which one I actually want to do yet, and this is just part of the brainstorming process. As I sketch these, I'll become more familiar with what it would actually take to model these designs, and think about what shapes would I use when modeling, what tools would I need to be using, and how am I actually going to pull this off in Maya. I'll also be thinking about, is this going to be so easy that it's boring and not very interesting to model? Or is this so hard and so complex that I feel like I'll never be able to pull it off? Now, of course, I do want you guys to try to challenge yourselves a little bit, but we do need to keep in mind our time constraints. If you don't have a lot of time to work on this, then don't bite off more than you can chew. Go for a reasonable goal. Now, for my sketching examples, I'm going to be doing this in Photoshop, just because it's one of the easiest ways that I can capture on screen the idea of how to sketch something like this out. You don't have to do this in Photoshop, though you can if you want to. You could also just do this on pencil and paper, or if you have an app on your phone that you like to draw on, you can use that too. However you choose to do it, the one thing to keep in mind is you need to have a way to share it with me. Whether you're taking a picture of the paper on your phone or taking a screenshot on your computer, you need to be able to share it with me in Schoology because I want to see some of your sketches today so that you can prove to me that you've been keeping up and doing your work. So there's a lot of different concepts, and again, I just want to start sketching out some examples and thinking about which ones I might actually want to try to model. So this one here has like an incredibly basic shape, and while it might not be too difficult to sketch something that looks somewhat like this, I have to admit, I don't really have like a great idea for how this actually functions as a habitat. And it almost seems like it might be too easy to model, like it's not really going to give me much to do inside of Maya. What it does have is like a whole bunch of weird little surface details here, where it looks like this surface has almost some sort of like a honeycomb detail on the top, and that seems like, I don't know, to me this seems like it would be tedious to model. It's kind of tedious and boring to draw. So I don't know if I want to model one really big basic shape and then have to go model like all these tiny little details in. And if I leave these out, it's just going to look like the most boring thing in the world. So already, while this one seems kind of easy in a way, it also seems kind of boring and kind of frustrating. And I don't know that I really want to try to actually model this one. So I'm going to cut this sketch short and move on. Now this one looks a little more traditional. With the big basic shapes that make up this kind of a habitat, I can really think how I would use cubes and then sort of turn them into cylinders and start extruding to make these tunnels. This looks like something that's pretty reasonable, could be fun to do, should be pretty achievable. As a concept, I kind of like this one. These sketches are not going to be beautiful, not yet anyhow. These are my very first rough drafts. This is part of that designer's fail faster sort of mantra, where you really don't want to be taking too much pride or putting too much passion into your first draft. Just get something on paper that very roughly represents what this habitat is going to look like when you model it. So I'm having more fun sketching this one. I can see how this could really turn into a model that would work for me. I like this one. I'm going to keep this kind of on my short list of I can pull this off. It's not insanely difficult. It's not stupidly simple. This is a good option. Now this one here looks pretty interesting. This is a lot taller. It's got a lot more verticality. This is like a tower of some kind. And something tall like this seems like, well, I could definitely make a kind of standout, noticeable, nice and interesting 3D model out of something like this. And keep in mind, guys, there's tons of tools in Photoshop that I could be using right now that would help me draw straight lines, that would help me do this, with bucket fills and things like that. I'm kind of purposefully ignoring those tools right now because I know a lot of you probably won't choose to sketch in Photoshop. So I'm kind of drawing this in Photoshop. I'm drawing this as if I was using, pencil and paper. Which, by the way, if you are using paper to do your sketches, please do use a pencil. Don't use a pen. When you're sketching, it's really nice to use something where you can easily correct mistakes. So in Photoshop, I can undo. With a pencil, I can easily erase. But a pen is so permanent, it's not a good brainstorming tool at all, really. And all right, here's another very vertical, sort of tower-like example. And I have to admit, when I first saw this concept, I was like, well, this looks like pure science fiction. This doesn't look very realistic to me. But then I realized that this was part of an article that said that NASA loves this design as a possible habitat. So it seems like, if it's good enough for NASA to consider, it's good enough for me. So it looks really cool. I'm gonna give this a quick sketch. Now, as I'm sketching this and I'm thinking about modeling it, this is a pretty cool design, but it has these nice smooth curves, these sort of arcs. It almost got this Xbox 360 look. It sort of inhales in the middle here. And then on top of that, it has layered all of these ridges that looks like lattice work, like you would put in your garden so that something with vines could grow up it. And it's also got all these little windows in it. So I like the shape of this. And the surface quality is pretty cool. If I'm thinking, I've only got a couple of weeks to model this, and I'm a beginner, so I'm still learning a lot about Maya. I might be getting a little intimidated by the idea of making this curved shape that's got all of these little details built into the side of it. It wouldn't be insane to be a little scared of attempting something like this. But I also like it a lot, so I think what I might do is I might do something like, let me grab a different color here. I might take the shape of this one right here, and I might sort of mash it up and combine it with the textures that were on this image over here, which were a lot simpler. So I can get the best of both worlds. I can still get the shape that I really like off of this building, and I can use the very realistic and believable textures on this building. And I can kind of mash up these two ideas, make something that feels a little bit like my own, and have a project that hopefully will be done on time and look really nice. So these are my first draft sketches. They can be crude, they can be quick, but in the next phase, I want you to spend a little more time on your sketches. Do as much as you can to figure out on pencil and paper what this is going to look like. Once you have that image sort of in your head, the next challenge is to draw it, not just once, from one perspective, but from multiple perspectives. So far, most of these have been sort of from the side, or maybe sort of 3/4 view from the top and the side. But when we're working in Maya, we can lock our perspective to the front, the side, the top, or the bottom, right? So what that means is if I have a sketch of this from at least one side, and then the top or the bottom, or maybe two sides and the top, I'll be able to have a lot of reference when I'm in Maya, and I won't have to just make up shapes as I go along. I can model right on top of my reference, similar to the way that I did in the rock example. So once you have a good big idea, go ahead and try to break it down into at least 3 sketches from 3 different perspectives. These 3 perspectives can be whichever ones you think will be most useful. If you're drawing an object that looks very much the same from the left and the right, then drawing it from the left and the right probably won't be that beneficial. But if drawing it from the front and the top are 2 totally different things, when you're in Maya and trying to model it in a 3-dimensional space, it's going to be very beneficial to be able to see, instead of just imagine, what it would look like from those different perspectives.